This is LS, and you're on Thorin's YouTube channel, so cut the Western shit.
The NA LCS's Golden Guardians are one of the franchise teams I just legitimately do not understand the point of. Like, I don't really see what the concept was, how they ever thought they were going to execute upon it, where the trajectory is, and I actually don't even buy their own explanation for what they were conceived of and what the basic philosophy informing how they're going to build one day, hopefully, a top team is. Because you look at them, okay, this isn't the pre-franchise days where a team could be at the bottom of the league, maybe they just got promoted, they don't have like as much money, or the same pull as the bigger squads. What we saw this year in the LCS was that since we had franchising coming and we had massive backing for many of the teams, and we had a number of the teams where you could now pay as much as a Cloud9, etc., and people knew that you're not going to get relegated, you saw a lot of talent go all over the league. You saw a lot of teams, and as a result, a lot more parity in the league early on because all the rosters shuffled. So what Golden Guardians couldn't secure any of that talent. Based on what I've heard, they were out there making bids towards some of the top talent. They were in the mix with some of them. They weren't just trying to save money, because that's one of the parts of the narrative that I think is bullshit, is that you start out, people looked at their team and perhaps forgivingly said, even though they're a team with a lot of backing, you know, maybe they were initially trying to like test the waters and see where the team goes and try a budget lineup to start out with. And that's why they spun the whole angle of like, we're trying to develop players and North American presence. That like people implied that, well, that's the problem. They do have strong backing. And as I said, from the information I've been able to garner from sources inside and around the team, they absolutely could have gotten better players, could have gotten big names, could have gotten star names and spent some real money and taken them away from bigger squads. So they've chosen these lineups and these cores and actually legit thought these were good teams, which is almost inconceivable to me, because they are a team that from the second I saw their lineup, I was like, that's not going to do anything. From the changes they've made, logically wouldn't improve much. And right now, I'm not on any kind of a trajectory or path to get very much better, to even be like a solid playoff team, nowhere near challenging for any of the top of the league or having the best players in the league. So you look at it, obviously a lot of their problem, aside from losing, has been PR mistakes. Doing things like replacing High and doing it in a way which didn't seem that classy considering he was a legendary player. Saying things like we have 5 great players, which just devalues the whole concept of the word great and makes you when you're someone who's part of the machinery putting together the squad, look like you're either full of shit or you don't know what you're talking about. Now, beyond that, look at some of the moves they've made. So as I said, they threw away High and they also threw away Loco Doco, right? When they had High, I don't even understand the premise of getting him initially, because it's counterintuitive what they claim they wanted him for, because they have said that they didn't want him to just like shot call all the time or like be too dominant in terms of the strategy element of the team. They wanted him to like sometimes leave space for other people or encourage other people to shot call or train them to shot call. Now, that's not plausible, because in the history of League of Legends, you could count on one hand or less the number of players who've actually been able to train another teammate in the game to shot call and then leave the team and have that guy shot call very well. It's been very, very rare. And on the level that High shot calls, which quite frankly is already very thin on the ground at the level he was able to do it, and having just one guy mastermind the game, those people already seem to have an innate talent for that or some natural strength or genius that you can't just simply learn. That's like saying to Rachmaninoff, teach me how to play all those piano pieces you're doing. Like, you're not going to be able to play him at his level no matter how much you practice, probably. There's a talent there you don't have. You could be a decent piano player. That's a different setting, though. So I already thought that was a waste of time to have him for that reason. Personally, I would have brought him in, but I would have said, right, let's use his strengths. Have him shot call the whole game. Then if we really are developing these other talents, let them develop within a team that has a good shot caller and a guy with a cohesive philosophy and who can tell them, I want you to do this and do that, and be sort of like a coach, a general on the field to do what the coaching staff and the squad want. Then in the future, if he's going to retire or he's not going to play longer, then you replace him with a competent shot caller, or then you start to work the other players. And don't do it from day one. That just doesn't make very much sense to me at all. Then, to just kick him out, okay, in isolation, didn't seem that good a move, but who are you getting? Oh, you've replaced him with Mickey, Korean player. That was a literal what the fuck to me when I saw that move. Because Mickey is a player who has been somewhat one-dimensional. He's a streaky player who can do some crazy moves and pop-offs, has some skill, but he's not a very all-rounded player. He's not a player you want as like the base of your team to try and make a championship squad. He's also, since he's Korean, not particularly a player that's going to be fabulous culturally or probably a long-term player for 5 or 10 years in your franchise. Like, I don't really see what the benefit was here. How's that an upgrade over High in terms of the other factors that High brought to the team? And especially because it doesn't seem there's a long-term future with Mickey, quite frankly. And he's certainly not a shot caller footballer either. So how does that help our problem that we've got here? The Loco Doco one, I won't go into very much, but the actual like reason he was fired and let go entirely, and the nature of how they did it, again, I noticed with not a whole lot of respect dealt to the person, quite frankly, just cutting them loose and kind of being a bit rude, if you ask me. It was a very minor issue. It wasn't what it was presented as. It's another one of those issues I really despise in esports, where you cut someone and you make it so vague when you allude to what they've done that people actually speculate, and most people come with the conclusion they did something much, much worse than what they did. And as a result, the person's reputation is then tarnished, but without you even having to have said it. I don't think that's fucking cool, quite frankly. So in getting rid of Loco in the way they did, I understand why they might, for PR reasons, have wanted to, but they lost a qualified coach, and they did not replace this coaching staff in a way that made them a competent team, a team that, again, could develop these players, could go somewhere. Loco's actually shown an ability to coach at a top level, to bring in newer players, to get a team together, to import some of the Korean style of play. There were definite upsides to having a Loco Doco, no matter what you think of him, whether you thought he was an elite coach or not. They're not a fucking elite team. Now you look at the players they do have. I've already addressed Mickey, but let's go through the rest of the players, shall we? So they've got Lolo. Now, the reason why I wanted to, like, I think Steve Arnesett's pretty cool generally, Liquid 112, but I wanted to literally just call him up, FaceTime him on his fucking whatever that phone was that he kept going on, HTC phone, and go, oh, hello, Steve, and let me just laugh in your face that you think 2017 is going to be the year of Lolo. Like, have you been watching the game, mate? Like, in what fucking universe is he going to be a star player or one of the best top laners in the NA LCS? Like, I don't know what inspired that thought within his brain. Did you eat the fucking... the worm at the end of the mezcal bottle or something? What are you doing? So you look at Lolo. We've now seen this guy play for a whole bunch of years. It's not like he's a rookie in any sense. Here's what we know about Lolo. If you give him loads of pressure and you give him the jungle attention and the resources, he's not going to be one of the best top laners in the NALCS. He'll be a mediocre to mid-table NALCS top laner, and that's before some of the imports. So if anything, still probably bottom half of the NALCS. He's decent enough with low econ. I would even verge on saying sometimes good. Seems like he's not that confident a player, so you might have the mental for him that's a bit lacking, but he can be decent at low econ. But you look at this squad, where are all the carries? Who's he playing low econ for? What's the point in it? So as I say, the Lolo one, I'd never been on board with that. I never understood why when Lolo, Dardoch and Matt came up, people were banging on about all of them. To me, I saw Dardoch, I go, wow, what a talent. I go, Matt, okay, there's something there, but I've really got to see on that one. I never got the Lolo one. I'm sorry, guys. And then from interviews and seeing his personality, doesn't particularly seem like a guy who's going to make it to the top or make it much further. Seems like an okay player. And if he was your worst or your second worst player on the team, I'd say, you know what, you got a decent squad. On this squad, it just shows that, like, this is actually, in theory, a half-decent player on your squad. So no wonder Golden Guardians is so underpowered and just are not really a legit threat beyond the odd weird upset over a team that just fucks the game up. Then let's talk about that same Matt. Boy, did this guy get overrated. I know part of it's because they made that sick drive feature that showed his very, like, you know, like emotional story of coming from Hawaii or wherever it was. Yeah, that seemed cool to me as well. But I separate someone's personality and their story and narrative from what they are as a player. This is a guy, let's be real, who was good or very good for one split. And that was when he was sitting in the back fucking pocket, sitting in the backpack of Piglet's, well, just sitting in Piglet's backpack, I guess would be the way to phrase it, a very lane-dominant AD carry who demanded to play a certain way, so we don't even know how much decision-making Matt was getting to make. And what was he good on? Like 2 champions or something? He was never getting banned out because no one saw him as a threat. He's in a team with Piglet and Dardoch and Phoenix. Yeah, unsurprisingly, having one good split like that does not make you a top player. One swallow does not a summer make. Likewise, one split of being decent on 2 champs with a very fantastic player in your lane doesn't make you a top player, or someone that shows that they can have the potential to be a top player. So I know he prevented some criticism thanks to that drive episode, etc. But I expect more, quite frankly, and he hasn't lived up to it. And he's another person who has spoken about having issues in terms of like pressure or anxiety or competitive aspect. These are worrying signs for me. I hope people can overcome them, but you know what? This is a fucking ruthless dog-eat-dog world when it comes to competition. It's about being a winner and having a sick mindset. It's not good enough to be like, I've got problems. It's like, okay, sorry, go deal with them. Like, you know, go have a fucking sick job that doesn't involve this much pressure and having a stage match and someone being a loser when they lose. There's other ways to do things in life, mate. So then you look at the players who I consider the legit talent in the team, which is Deftly and Contracts. Now, Contracts, in some senses, has an even more scaled up version of what Matt just had that I described, which is, yeah, you know what? He showed some promise. He showed himself to be decisive when he first joined C9. Had some great players. Was looking like a player that could be, along with Dardoch. At the time, some people were hyping a Cardian. I never really saw that one myself. But, you know, like the future of like jungle talent in NA, like top players one day. Obviously, again, being an NA jungler is very, very valuable. Well, you know what? Let's be real. First of all, a lot of that didn't even continue in Cloud9 from contracts. But when he was having success, it was in a team that was incredibly stacked with very talented teammates, most of them all LCS level talent, all the very best in the LCS at their role. Loads of them veterans, loads of them fabulous players who fully polished themselves and developed it, and most of them, quite frankly, winning lanes. So he played decently for a while, even then not like 2 full splits or anything, in a team where he had all winning lanes. Is this a fucking joke? How much more easy do you want it to be? Does he have fucking jungler privilege or something? What's going on here? Like, you have to actually be able to play from behind sometimes, or you have to be able to figure out what to do with a losing lane, or how to offset a scenario where someone knows this lane isn't going to do very well. Meanwhile, this one's going to do well, but that will telegraph that you might go... These are the scenarios that determine whether you're a top jungler. So he shows some talent, some ability, but first of all, it doesn't make any sense to have a team like this without top players, because he hasn't shown he can service anyone except top players. And then beyond that, the fact that he's playing with bombs and he's not particularly like a god jungler at the moment, yeah, that's a bit concerning myself going forwards, but he's still young. I'll give him some time to develop. Definitely is the only one in the team I'll look at and I actually go, you know what, that is legit talent. Like, that is someone who does seem like a good pickup, does seem like he's developing, seems like in the future he could be a good player in a top team, just that this isn't a top team, and I don't know how this is going to become a top team, so that's the issue. He needs better players around him. So you managed a whole total of 1 player that seems like they're developing in your team, seems like they've hit their potential in your team, seems like they could be part of a good team in terms of like all the others that he currently plays with. So what is the point of this team? If it's to rep North America, then you know what? First of all, get Mickey the fuck out of there and get a North American mid laner. In fact, go and get the best North American talent if it's not repping North America. Make a bid for Haunter. Get Dardoch. Get a Licorice when they're available. These sorts of players. Make the move for Smoothie when you hear he's on the market. Go and get the top NA talents and tell them I'm committing to you. And the reason I want you to join my team is we're going to get all the top talents and we're going to be an all North American team and that's going to be our gimmick, but we're going to have very good North American players. That would be cool. You're not doing that. If it's to raise talent up, then you know what? Don't get all newer talent, because you didn't. You just got worse players in reality, weaker players who happened to be from NA and then implied that they were developing when they weren't at all. What you do is you raise up some talent by getting some veterans in place who can play support or jungle or whatever, and then you bring in the young talent and you have them work with the veteran, and that's how they become a top player. All you did is get high, basically. Sound. How is that going to make everyone else a top player? Doesn't even make sense, right? Then, how about this? If it's about developing talent, get some actual fucking talent to develop. Lord Matt, they're not developing talent. They've been around long enough. They've got enough experience now. They're not particularly developing much. They seem like they're fairly established as players, and we see their strengths, we see their weaknesses, and you know what? We know who they are, and that's it. They're not someone who's got still many years ahead to become a great player. They're not going to get 1.5 times better next year. It just seems quite implausible these can be considered developing talents. Now, if the goal was to just be a good LCS team in a franchise squad, which I think should be the #1 goal of any franchise team in the LCS, then drop that whole narrative about developing players and about being from NA. Just get good players, no matter where they're from. Make a good squad, have it with good coaching staff, try and win games. Because right now, it's a fucking joke. Like, you look at this scenario, you're already in a situation where the team's such a joke that even when they got the odd upset win, people were going, wow, that's a lot better than I thought. You have all the money in the backing to do this. So, quite frankly, it's not good enough. And right now, I don't have to pull for this team to do well. What's the fucking point in it? This video was kindly supported by Gardner Wilson, Dean Tanglis, Alex Adams, Eddie Wingfors, Andreas Snazore Westerlund, godawfulwasteofspace, Kyla Harris, Travis Greb, James Harding, Daniel Yordanov, VeXii, Robert Baxter, and a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion. Now, do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Perhaps you'd like to ask me a question for my monthly AMA. Would you like teasers to see who's coming next on my upcoming content and what's going to be coming down the pipeline? Perhaps you want to take part in an esports discussion with me. Well, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today via the Patreon link below.